Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Hello there, welcome along to Business Connections Live, the program for entrepreneurs, SMEs and business owners. Now on today's show we're going to be discussing why you should ignore the politics that are going on just at the moment and just focus on growing and making your business successful. Joining me in the studio, he's somewhat outspoken, Antonio Falco. He is the sales director. Antonio has been on the program before in the past and it is lovely to have you back on the program again today.
Thank you, Steve. It's very kind of you.
You know, going back, I remember you being on the show and we had the Chamber of Commerce for Surrey in and we were chatting away about the whys and whyfalls when it was around Brexit in those days, what we should vote for, how it would affect business. We find ourselves in a very difficult situation right now. What's your views on it all?
Well, I know the show's called... Say again?
Are we going to hell in a handcart?
Well, it feels that way, doesn't it, Steve? I think it feels that way to a lot of people, whether they voted in or out, left or right. It's an issue that's really affecting, as we talked about earlier on, about business. I know the show's called Never Mind the Politics, but actually I don't think we can avoid the politics. So I think maybe a few minutes on the politics, because I think now it's starting to affect business. I think it's having a detrimental effect on investment. I think there's an awful lot of companies. In fact, the corporate world is sitting on trillions of pounds in the bank account waiting to spend and invest, but they're not. I also think there's a wall of investment waiting to come into the UK, but it's not yet. And why is that? It's because we're at this impasse. This impasse that we, the people, really haven't created it. Remember, Steve, back in 2016, Parliament passed an act that passed it over to the people to have a vote and a say into whether they wanted to stay in or leave.
But some people would say that particular vote was an advisory vote. All they were doing, they were actually going out there and they were asking the British people maybe for advice on what they would like the government to do.
But wasn't it an act of Parliament?
It was indeed.
An act of Parliament no longer makes it advisory. I remember in the literature which every household got in this country, where it quite clearly, one was a little bit of a bias, whichever way you voted, left in or out, it was a biased piece of literature to try and persuade you of one side of the argument. But more importantly, that piece of literature clearly stipulated that whatever the British people voted, the Parliament was going to see it through. And so, has that happened? It hasn't. And this is what's causing the ructions. People thought that once the decision has been passed over to them by an act of Parliament, and it was clearly made to them that their decision was going to be enacted, I asked myself, who, what, where and how?
Do you think what's actually happened is that we've got a real waiting game going on here? The longer we leave it, the longer we have this indecision, the more diluted that particular vote becomes. So therefore it becomes less and less relevant as we move on through time. 3 years ago at a time, regardless of what people say, whether they felt they were informed or they were misinformed or they were misled, the vote took place 3 years ago. Here we are, we've moved 3 years on and circumstances seem to have changed. So therefore it's becoming less and less relevant.
But circumstances always change. When you vote for a government, and remember, the vast majority of governments are voted in with between 35 and 38% of the vote. So the vast majority of people never vote for the government that takes power. But we still allow that government to take that party to take government and to try and see through whatever manifesto it's sold to the public, which very rarely actually, Steve, as you know, actually gets delivered anyway. But we seem to be happy with that. And so when we have a situation as we are currently, which has never happened before, of course, but we have this situation, I think the real damage, and this is a business programme, is to business and to fundamentally to the economy. Because remember, governments only have taxes to spend, and those taxes are derived from two major sectors. One, businesses direct, and B, from people who are employed by those businesses. That's the money they have to spend. And what's happening, I think, in the economy at the moment is it's starting to grind to a halt, because businesses need to know one thing and one thing only, and that is, which way are we going? What is the decision? Because until you tell me what that decision is, I don't know what investment decisions to make. I don't know if I should be investing in new plant, in people, etc., etc. I have to know where I'm going. Business is stifled when it's subject to indecision. And so the disservice that government has done, and let's be honest, Steve, it's just one big game. It's Game of Thrones in Parliament, isn't it?
So is it the government or is it Parliament?
It's Parliament. It's Parliament, Steve, because now it's down to them. It's one big game. It's one side against the other. I don't care now who's in government. It's for them collectively to come together and understand the damage they're doing to the country, the damage to the economy, which is going to have repercussions on everybody. Whatever your
but they would say the damage would be far worse if we were to leave.
Well, that's another argument. But that's another argument, Steve. Right now, it's indecision that's causing the problem. It's indecision that is stopping business from investing, and that's what they have to deal with. Remember, I will say this, it's a big game where 65 million people are in the middle of it trying to figure out what on earth's going on, and it's about time that we had politicians that actually, there's no choice, Steve. You've got to have the vote enacted. I was listening to one of the international radio call-ins, and a chap rang in. He said, "I'm French. I've been living here 16 years. I'm to and from France regularly, and whatever has to be, has to be." He said, "But fundamentally, if you go against the ballot, you have nothing left. You have nothing if you go against the ballot."
So what would you say then to this weekend, of course, the Lib Dems, who have just come out and said, that forget the ballot. What we're doing, we're staying in, and that's what we're going to be campaigning for.
Okay.
What would you say to people who support them? Is that because they too don't have all the facts? Do any of us have all the facts?
Well, no, nobody has all the facts on anything. You don't. So part of it is your own personal philosophy as to what you think is the right thing to do, and based on whatever your standards are, whatever your criteria is, whatever your philosophy is, and whatever your standards are in life.
We hear a lot of people are saying, I've just been whispered in my ear, a lot of people had a very simplistic view of Brexit. And it's been said a number of times by political commentators and politicians as well that people didn't understand exactly what they were getting themselves into.
So people have a simplistic view. Here's my answer. So what? You asked them to vote. You didn't say, hold on a second, before you get to the ballot, here's the test you've got to pass. You didn't say to them, read this document first and then pass a test on it and then you can go and vote. Parliament either is clear about something or they're not. They passed a law for people to vote. And so here's my answer about the Lib Dems. It's down to this. What is our society based on? What can it be possibly based on? It has to be based on at least three main pillars. One, the rule of law, and with that, an independent judiciary. Two, a free press. And three, democracy. Because without those three things, Steve, what do we have? We've got no basis to build society.
We are in a position at the moment where there is a danger of democracy being eroded, I think, and you're nearly setting up a form of dictatorship, aren't you? But some people would say that's exactly what has happened now. We've got someone who's gone in, unelected, is leading the country down a particular route. There doesn't seem to be any evidence behind what he's doing.
But Steve, you say unelected. Okay, let's just clarify. Every single party leader, including Joe Swinson and Jeremy Corbyn, is only elected by their party. The general public do not vote for a party leader. It just happens to be, by coincidence, that the Conservative government has elected a new leader who, just by coincidence, happens to be the Prime Minister. And that's happened to both parties. This is not exclusive to the Conservative Party. All parties are subject to exactly the same rules. So to say that he's unelected is completely wrong. He's completely elected.
Let's go back a step at the moment and let's talk a little bit about the fundamentals of this. And where I'm sitting from, it seems that Parliament, Bercow, Labour, and the politicians who want us to remain have tied the hands of our negotiating ability by removing a no deal. And the linguistics that are used are no deal, crashing out, and all the rest of it. But I have never heard anything so ridiculous. If you go to buy, this is the example we've talked about, you go to buy a car, you don't walk into the car showroom and go, I'm going to buy a car regardless, whatever you tell me. Doesn't matter what price you say, what rules, what regulations. I am not walking out of here without buying a car. Have we not just fundamentally lost the skill and the art of negotiating? And is there a level of stupidity now in Parliament that is coming over? The world is mocking us, surely.
Well, the ability to negotiate in business is critical. The ability to make the sale, because that's what negotiate is critical. I think that you say have we lost the ability? I'm not sure how many politicians had it in the first place. I'm really not. I'm not sure that there was the skill that was there in the first place.
We're probably we're getting the politicians we deserve, obviously, aren't we? Because it's the people that you really want to be politicians and leading the country are too busy running successful businesses.
Probably, Steve. I think there's an element of truth in that. Of course, there is. But this horrible phrase, we are where we are. The point is that in reference to the fact that we're removing the no deal Brexit. The other counter argument to that is the only reason we're doing that is to make sure that we leave with some type of deal, because the argument is that leaving without a deal is going to be worse anyway. So that's the counter argument to the point you've just made about leaving with no deal. But the thing is this, I don't know if you've noticed or you've heard, but the Parliament, never has the Parliament channel been watched by so many people. I'm almost glued to it. I mean, I haven't got time, but I'm always, when I can, I'm glued to it late evenings. And what do I see? I see a House of Representatives who, to the main part, and don't get me wrong, there are some very good people in that on both sides of the divide. But the vast majority of politicians I see stand up are barely able to string a sentence together, or a coherent thought, or actually have any process to the comment or the speech they're giving, or the rebuttal they're trying to make to whatever's happening in Parliament. They stand up and struggle to make some fluid, coherent point. And I look at them thinking, and these are the people that are running the country. These are the people that are making decisions about how you and I are going to live our lives. I think Parliament's a busted flush. I think what's really happening is that all sides, whether you vote left or right, in or out, have lost trust. And that, I think, is the biggest problem we now have in society. Because whatever happens over the next few months or years, I think the real biggest problem that the Parliament has to get to grips with is how they can regain the trust of the British people, whatever those people have voted.
Well, I suppose the question is, do they care, and are they working towards that at the moment? My guest on today's show is Antonio Falco. Listen, you can agree or you can disagree. Unlike other broadcasters, we can actually have a view, and we can be as biased if we want, or be accused of being as biased as we want. I must admit, as a business owner, surely you too, as a business owner, would you ever go into negotiations where you took no deal off the table? This is the bit that I just cannot understand. And also the argument as well too that we voted on something that we didn't understand and we didn't know. Well, I mean, maybe the same could be said for each and every election that we go into. When we look at the party's manifesto, as Antonio said, barely any of them actually carry out the manifesto that they promise that they will take you through. So maybe even in that particular, every election then becomes a miselection and can be open to examination and cross-examination at a later date. Listen, more from Antonio in just a few moments' time. He's fighting at the bit there, champing at the bit to get back on the programme. More from Antonio in just a few moments' time here on this edition of Business Connections Live. Let's go back a week. We had a great show last week. We were talking to Martine Robbins. She's the director of the HR department, Woking and Guildford, about the importance of upskilling your employees. We touched on many points. We also explained as well the importance of having an effective HR team, HR department, somebody who understands employment law, understands why an HR team are there on the programme, and also what we should be doing with our future employees. How do we get the most out of them? How do we keep them motivated? How do we keep them skilled to the levels that we need them to be skilled to? Great show last week. Martine gave some fantastic rock solid advice. All her details are on our website. I'll give you that in a few moments' time. But with the key takeaways from last week's programme, here's Martine Robbins on Business Connections Live. So today we're talking about upskilling in your business, how to manage the workforce of tomorrow. My guest in the studio today is Martine Robbins. She's the owner of the HR department, Woking and Guildford.
If they're starting their business or they're taking that first step to employing someone, it's actually doing it in the right way. And they know from what they've read and heard about in the media, all the horror stories of what happens when it does go wrong. So they often do a little bit of a search to say, okay, who can I work with that can help me to do it the right way from day one? I think with corporates, often it's about trying to align often lots of employees towards a certain direction and making sure that you keep that alignment. That's not too dissimilar in smaller businesses because, again, business owners have goals. In SMEs, they have aspirations for growth, and often it's trying to help them achieve the same sort of thing. So always think about what you're looking to achieve by bringing someone into the business. Be very clear about the skills, experience and knowledge that you need, but more importantly, be very thorough and robust about it. And also not forget, discrimination and all those sorts of things start at the point of recruitment as well. So if you aren't confident in your ability to interview and go through that process properly, I would suggest that you find a way to make sure that you do get the knowledge and the support, because if you go off the right track, you can actually expose the business. So basically it's looking at your business and seeing where it is today and, to your point, where it's going tomorrow, and look at it over a sort of a 3, 6, 9, 12 month period, even up to a 5-year period if you've got a strategic plan that supports that, and understanding what you need to help you get to the growth levels that you are aiming for. So you need to be clear about what the skills are, what the experience is, okay? And if you have people in the organisation, are they capable of evolving with their skill set in the same way that you need them to going forward? Well, I think there's a saying that we often see out in the media, what happens if I develop them and they go? Or more importantly, what happens if I don't and they stay? And I think that's a good way of trying to sort of summing up. We want, I think, as individuals to feel that we are learning and developing constantly. I know I do. I'm sure you do, Steve, as well. The fact is that as we move forward in life, we want to feel that we're not stagnating and that we're learning new things. And those new things are actually adding value either to our professional life or our personal lives. And I think we shouldn't, as business owners, forget that's exactly how other people that work for us think as well. I think sometimes when businesses start out, that they're very clear in terms of what they need from the outset, and then as things evolve, it's like, well, actually we're evolving, I'm evolving as the business owner, but maybe the people that started with the business haven't evolved. And then you're getting into, is it they can't evolve or they won't evolve? If they can't evolve, it's trying to understand why that is. Maybe, as you say, they may not be academic, or they may have struggled in the past, may not have had the right support. Just to be clear about where you're going, okay? And often, whether it is in certain times for all sorts of weird and wonderful reasons, just be clear about when you are trying to bring people into your organisation, the skills and experience that you are really, really needing, okay? Also the basis that you want to bring them into the organisation, so it doesn't always have to be on payroll, it could be on a contract arrangement. Again, think about what's going to work best for your business, and again, considerations are affordability. Maybe you only need a certain input of skill and knowledge for a certain period of time, in which case it could be a contractor. But be very clear about what you're looking for, and then after that, be then thinking about how do I then move productivity in the right direction with the people that I've got. And how do you do that? Make sure people know what's expected of them. So have terms of reference, which means job descriptions. So if you've got a job description and you've got objectives, then typically people know what they need to be doing, how they need to be doing it, and more importantly, supporting your business growth. I'm Martine Robbins from the HR department, Woking and Guildford, and we provide outsourced HR support primarily for small and medium-sized businesses. So if you've got any queries about your organisation and how you're trying to move forward and grow your business, or just day-to-day productivity, then please get in contact. martine.robbins@hrdepartment.co.uk or 01483 603 001.
Martine Robbins there, Director of HR Department, Woking and Guildford. A fantastic show as well. If you want to watch the entire programme, I'll give you the web address in just a few moments' time. Shows like this are all about expressing thoughts and views and maybe getting them over. But imagine you were doing that to your own internal sales force, or maybe your entire team of people that work for your organisation. Maybe to your customers. Do your customers really know what you're doing? How do you communicate with them on a weekly or monthly basis? Are you one of these people that sends out the newsletter? Well, why don't you turn your readers into viewers? Everybody's going on about the power of video, the power of video. You're sitting there at the moment and you think to yourself, yeah, but videos only need to be a minute and a half. Long form video works. You're already sitting on the edge of your seats waiting to hear what outrageous things Antonio Falco is going to be saying and what his views are. And whether you agree or disagree, what you're doing is you're reacting. And don't you want your customers and your clients and your staff to react with your thoughts? Well, wouldn't a program like this be absolutely perfect for them? This isn't just propaganda. You can turn this into absolute education and entertainment all at the same time. So if you want more details of doing that, to have a show just like this one, branded for your organisation, well, get in touch with us here at Business Connections Live. It's that easy to do. All you got to do is drop us an email to studio@businessconnectionslive.com. Better still, let's not be frightened about this. You'll find this app on your smartphone. It's called The Phone. Pick the phone up and give us a call. 01784 256 777 is our telephone number. You can get through to either myself, Steve Highland, or to Linda Bazant, and we can have a bit of a chat about how we can turn your thoughts and ideas and aspirations and your dreams into a TV program that you can publish to your database, to your employees. Don't forget as well, you can also follow our stream of consciousness on Twitter at BCL Business TV. We were talking about that before we came on. Yeah. You've come off Twitter, haven't you?
On Twitter, yeah, I found it to become a bit of a mob rule platform. And so I do like LinkedIn because I think that's a professional business network, and that's the one I like to use. But coming back to your...
No, not yet.
Okay.
Hold on.
Hold
that breath, hold that thought. So, Twitter, you can do that. You also go on to Facebook, where the programme is live streamed as well. You can also leave your comments and views there. But the best place to go for over 270 programmes, over 400 hours of great business advice, is to go to our website at businessconnectionslive.com. We look forward to your company on the site. Listen, if you've got any views about this, do tweet us. If you've got any views about it, leave a comment, maybe perhaps on our Facebook page. You can contact us via LinkedIn. You can do that too. You can leave comments. I mean, some people think sometimes I come over as a bit of a Wally sometimes. They're so close. Many people saying different names in my ear at the moment, and they leave those comments on YouTube. You know, quite frankly, you can say what you like, because at the end of the day, we're doing it and we don't care. We're giving our views. If you want to be involved with the community. Have your say. We want to hear from you. Let us know. Get in touch with us here. Go to the website at businessconnectionslive.com. God, that was a bit of a stand-up speech there, wasn't it?
It was.
You're watching Business Connections Live. My guest on today's show is Antonio Falco. He is the sales director. He's a published author as well, a fantastic site, works with a number of companies and organisations in the southeast of England, growing their sales, making their sales teams work, identifying where there are opportunities and getting out there and making certain that the sales teams can close those deals to grow their businesses. But at the moment, as you said, it's all been ever so slightly held back. And now you've been dying to give a comment on something that I said. So what was it?
Well, Steve, just to come back to something you just said a second ago, actually, you know, what do I care about? I care about businesses. I care about all those business people out there that have put everything on the line to start and run a business, to employ people, to pay their taxes, and to be part of the community, and particularly small businesses. What people don't understand at small businesses is that they are actually a part of the fabric of their local community, unlike maybe corporations. So I'm supporting all those businesses, and yes, my job is in the field that I specialise in is about trying to help those businesses figure out how they're going to find the next customer, how their sales team are going to be able to get through their sales cycle, how they're going to figure out how to close a sale, how they're going to grow all the things you've just mentioned. That's what I care about, because all those things matter, because those things are what drives our society. Because
but where have they been hit at the moment because of the uncertainty? Because you look at it at different tiers. At one tier, the small SME up to a certain level, they're going to be dealing with other local businesses.
They are,
and so to a certain extent, that kind of business there, even with the uncertainty, things. Maybe raw resources will get more and more expensive, but they're still providing a service that is needed just to work on a daily basis. Is the real damage being done to the international businesses, the large corporates, the exporters that are sitting here, that are slightly bigger than the small SME?
But nobody works in isolation. No business sector works in complete isolation. So if you look at manufacturing at the moment, manufacturing figures at the moment are absolutely horrendous. It's on its knees at the moment, because.
But it is across Europe, isn't it?
It's
Germany about to go into recession.
Yes, it's across Europe. I accept that, but we're just talking about us at the moment, because the one thing that's really affecting us is this whole Brexit indecision, and that is having a stifling effect. It's a fact. And so, whilst you're absolutely right, there are different levels and different spheres of business, we all interact in some format. It does drip down. There is a drip feed down to smaller businesses. So you've got large corporation that's investing in machinery, people, expansion. That filters down to small businesses. It's just a fact of how the economy works. Okay, so we are not living in isolation here, and so. I care about all those businesses, and I care about all the businesses that we do the best we possibly can in order to grow the best business and become as successful as we can be. And of course, what's been happening over the past 10 years, Steve. With the recession and the banking scandal, if I can call it that hit us 10 years ago, what started to happen is that people start to look at the businesses in all spheres in terms of how they operate. How ethical is this business? How do they deal with their customers? How do they deal with their suppliers? Are they offering a high level of service? Are they not caring about the environment? Are they so businesses have come under the spotlight in terms of the way they operate. I'm writing a new book. It's called The Morality of Business. Mm-hmm. Okay, and one of the sections in this book comes down to government, because government is very happy to take the taxes from businesses and people, but they're not happy to make the decisions like the ones that we're asking them to make right now. So they have to sort their act out, because businesses are under scrutiny at the moment and will continue to be. And I think that now we have to say to government, you've got to do your bit, because what's happening in our economy at the moment is that business is starting to come to a grinding halt.
But wouldn't they say that they are doing their bit, and what they are doing in the interest of business is that they're making certain that we don't fall over a cliff edge, that that they are protecting us.
So here we go. I come back to my earlier point about the calibre of the negotiations so far. Okay, we've been at it 3.5 years. 3.5 years, Steve. At which point, and you know what, it hasn't been 2 or 3 people negotiating with 2 or 3 people in Europe. It's been hundreds of people negotiating with hundreds of people in Europe. 3.5 years of discussion. At some point, have we seen, the only thing we've seen is a 583-page document, which, Steve, actually is a header document. Okay, mm-hmm. Prime Minister May's agreement she brought back is what's called a header document. It's actually just explains how it's all going to be seen through over the coming years, how the next 2 years of negotiations.
This is just the beginning, isn't it?
This is just the beginning. Okay,
Yes.
And what you've got a situation, quite understandably, not every politician's read every single page. Of course they haven't. And of course they're then asking the people, well, let's go back and agree that particular document. Well, I come back to the earlier point that you made about people voting to be uninformed. So what are we going to say to people? Well, have another referendum, okay? But before you go to that referendum, you've got to read the 583-page header document, and then you've got to pass a test on it. It's complete nonsense. So I come back to my earlier point. We as businesses would do our bit. You as government have got to do your bit. And what you fail to do as a collective, 652 people have failed to do as a collective, is actually have an intelligent argument between you about how you're going to deliver what you asked people to vote on. That's all you've got to do. I know that's not an easy ask, but you know what? You asked to stand in Parliament.
But, however, what is the answer then? It's all very well saying that. I mean, go back and what are you going to deliver? They probably can't, they can't agree. They can't agree on anything because
complex.
What's happened is it's been mired, it's been overseen, it's been confused by party politics that are going on. There are people playing games. You got Corbyn, who looked up until recently, because he knows it's a bag of worms, it's a poison chalice, whoever is sitting in 10 Downing Street. He doesn't want that. So that's the reason he's stopping the general election. And now what they're doing is they're coming to this, where there is this whole no deal idea that, you cannot ask for it, which is just absolute madness.
So I come back to my point a second ago. Okay, all I'm saying is that I care about business and how they operate and helping them to get leaner, faster, better, quicker. Okay, at what they do, and I've done that successfully the past 20 odd years, which you know. But all I'm asking government to do is to stop playing party politics.
But this goes deeper.
It
does go deeper.
It?
Do you know what? I was at an event with an organisation, not even going to name the organisation, and a representative within that organisation who represents businesses at a local level turned around to me and said, if we leave with no deal, if we leave, the country is ruined for 40 years.
Right. So what's you asked
40 years?
You asked me what the answer... Yes, because the recovery time takes up. But you asked me what the answer was, okay? The answer is this, I think. I think somebody in government, probably the Prime Minister, needs to front up to the people and say, we've made a complete and utter... And actually, all party leaders have to front up to the people and say, we've made a complete and utter mess of this. And the reason we've made a mess on it is because... You may like to say that, but I can't... because... So we've made a complete and utter mess of this. And the reason we've made a mess of this is because we haven't focused on what the task in hand should have been, and that is negotiating a deal and leading on that. What we've done is
we've were apologetic in our approach.
Exactly. We've decided to argue amongst ourselves about what the strategy should be. So the answer now has to be, going forward, we as party leaders are going to put the people first, and we're going to actually negotiate a deal, and this is how we're going to do it. And these are some of the elements that we're going to... They can't reveal anything. Nobody reveals everything in terms of a negotiating strategy. But I think what they have to do is...
Unless you're the UK government, right, where you want to reveal everything, right, and you want to show your hand.
So you have to give people confidence back, and the only way to do that is as a collective leadership, turn around and say to the people, we've made a mess of this, we're going to go back and this is how we're going to negotiate, and here are the first 3 things that we're going to negotiate on.
But how could
that's the only way around it.
How could you ever get to that stage when the two sides are so far apart?
Because they have to be honest, Steve. We need integrity. Do you know what's missing, Steve? Integrity.
But maybe they would say
integrity, Steve. You know, people are looking... I said a second ago that people are looking at the way that businesses are operating, and hence my new book. It's taken me quite a long time because it's a philosophical book. The Morality of Business is a philosophical book, and part of that book is to talk about the integrity of business. We now have to talk about the integrity of some of our departments, and government being a department. We have to look at the integrity of our institutions, and government has to look at itself and say, do you know what? We've misserved the people. We now have to get our heads together. We have to stop the politics and actually look at how we can best come up with a plan, and they have to lay it in front of people. That's the only way around it.
What about Ireland then? No one mentioned Ireland in the lead up to the referendum, really. To
part of negotiation, Steve. It's a negotiating tactic. It's a negotiating tactic. That's what that's what they have to...
I mean, as a country, I mean, we've badly served Ireland anyway, mm-hmm, over the past several hundred years. And there is a danger, the centuries in fact, I mean, there is the danger that what we do, we reignite the troubles in Northern Ireland again. Or in Ireland.
Hence the reason, Steve, leadership of all the parties have got to come together, and they've got to tell the people that they are going to work
Sinn
together.
Féin,
They're going to
Labour,
work together on
Liberal Democrats.
on this deal. That's what has to happen.
You've got Liberal Democrats saying there is going to be no deal. They can't agree now. How could they ever? I mean, but the thing is that that's an idealistic view of what you're saying,
no, it
isn't
isn't,
it?
Steve, because government and countries, we as people have to live with compromise. They've got to get together and figure out how they're going to compromise.
They can't do it now, though.
But that's
I know you keep
their
saying integrity.
job.
I know you keep saying that's integrity, but and that is their job. But they seem to have missed that.
And that's why I'm voicing it as the strategy. You've asked me what the strategy is, and I'm telling you that's what the strategy is. Somebody has to knock their heads together. Look, everybody, you've got to come together and work this out and put the politics to one side, because you have to. Now, the politics can't be totally put to one side because they're each going to have their own views. So I say to them,
Well,
right,
the trouble is,
have an
within the Labour
intelligent-
Party, they can't make up their mind what they want, can they?
Well,
Labour
another
Party
argument,
completely
then.
all over the place, negotiate a deal at one moment, come back and then fight against it or campaign against it.
Right.
You've got the Liberal Democrats, they're just going to go completely against the vote because we're all idiots.
Of
And
course.
those people who voted out are idiots and they didn't know
Unless
what
you
they were
voted
voting
in,
for.
in which
The
case-
people that were voting in, they're the smart people.
So the answer is, so Steve, it comes back to there's no other way around this. Can we have the adults back in the room? I'm serious. We have to have the adults back in the room. All these political leaders have to say to each other and themselves, do you know what? I've got to park this stuff.
But doesn't it
Because
get
we
to-
are going to destroy the country collectively.
But doesn't it then get to a stage where you start looking at nearly a dictatorship? It will be
Well, not if they come together.
this way. But they won't come
Not if they-
together, will
but
they?
it's the only
Because
answer.
honestly, if Boris stood up there and went, the sky is blue, Corbyn will say it's
Yeah,
green.
I know that. But we are at a point in our history, okay, where normal rules and normal politics no longer applies. We have got ourselves, and you can argue 100 different arguments as to how we got here. We have got ourselves in a situation that has never ever been seen before, and on that basis, we have to have some new thinking. And the only way around it, we either drain Parliament of the entire and completely change
The
the entire
cesspit of Parliament.
Yeah, or we actually have a situation
Would it be
where those
easier to
leaders
stay
say,
in?
do you know what? Would it be easy to stay in?
Would it just not be easy
No.
to go, we've made it...
No, and I'll tell you why.
Why's that?
If you go back into the car showroom,
All right, we're back to the car scenario. Yep.
go back into the car and say, look, I'm terribly sorry. I know I was a bit hard-nosed about my negotiating tactics. I'm happy to pay whatever you want me to pay because I really want the car. If you use that, because that's the scenario, isn't it? That'll be the situation.
But you
And
get the car.
but quite rightly.
You get the car at a reasonable price
Yeah.
and you drive away.
But you get to drive it as fast as we say you can drive it, on the days we say you can drive it, with the petrol we say that you can put in it, and the etc. etc.
I'll take it.
because
I'll take it. Because I think that's the way the public are feeling.
But what happens now, Steve? What happens now? The next election, what's the point? What's the point?
Well,
and whether you're a Remainer or a Leaver, you must be able to. You must say to
people's
yourself,
vote then?
well, every vote's a people's vote. That's
Yeah.
that's a marketing phrase to try and get people to think that the first one wasn't a people's vote.
All
I
right.
mean, and that's the sort of dishonesty that I hate in politics.
Right.
All votes are people's votes. You know, badgers and frogs aren't going to vote. Okay, it's people that go to vote. All right. So let's stop trying to con the public by changing the vocabulary in order to get them to think that the first vote wasn't a people's vote. I find that totally and utterly dishonest, and that's what I mean about people getting their heads together and becoming adults. Stop trying to change the words as a way of trying to change people's minds. No, the way to change people's minds and to get confidence back is to come up with a coherent plan. That's it. That's how you do it. If you're running a business and you're struggling and you're trying to figure out what's going on, you get together, whether it's just you or with some friends or co-directors, and you say to yourselves, we're not leaving this room until we figure out what the plan is.
More from Antonio Falco in just a few moments' time. He is the sales director on this edition of Business Connections Live. I did notice actually my voice got very high just then. It got very high, didn't
emotive.
it? It is. I just wonder if the country and politics are so badly broken that it'll never be mended the way things are going. I do want. It's going to be this time next week's going to be a very interesting time because, in fact, the week that we are recording this, tomorrow is going to be interesting. Wednesday, we're High Court. Is it tomorrow or Wednesday?
Tomorrow's the Supreme Court.
Supreme Court, where we find out whether proroguing Parliament was legal or not. I think you'll be fine. I think you get away. I've had a word. Everything will be all right. You're watching.
There you go. The influence.
Listen, I know you may be watching this email going, you're just having an argument for the sake of having an argument. And what can any of us do? What kind of influence can any of us have? I suppose in an ideal world, it would be fantastic if people could put lock them in a room. You can't come out until the whole thing is resolved. I don't think that's ever going to happen. That's an unrealistic view. I think when it comes to, someone says, that's what they'd do if they were electing a pope.
I'm just going to say that, actually.
Let's get the pope involved, that's what I say. So you've got all that going on as well. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we've got confused between Brexit, politics, and personal ambition. And I think because of that, isn't that why we go to war? Personal opinion, personal views, personal whatever. We'll come back. We'll talk more about it in a moment. So then, we had the International Trade Manager from Surrey Chamber of Commerce on earlier on in the year. That's an exciting job for him at the moment. He gave the program was called Brexit Advice for Importers and Exporters. It was Business Connections Live 257. I was talking to Gary Hayes from the Chamber of Commerce for Surrey, and we were talking about how UK importers and exporters trading with the EU and other overseas countries can prepare for leaving the EU in the event of a no-deal scenario, which, by the way, isn't going to happen. Where they can find support and information how to minimise the potential disruption. We could still leave, couldn't we, at the end of the month?
Allegedly.
Because actually the legislation says that we want you to ask for an extension.
See, the trouble is, Steve, that we were all geared up to leave as businesses on the 29th of March.
Yeah.
Okay, and now what's happened is, and this is the problem, this is why businesses need a decision so they can make the right investment decisions. And one of the big investment decisions for any business is investment in people. And so we have to have that happen because it's going to affect the next generation coming along. Because if businesses don't start investing in the young people in their companies, where's it going to go?
You must say that employment at the moment is at the lowest it's ever been.
It is, absolutely.
So it's a good place.
Currently. The word is always currently.
Hold the thought. Currently. Meanwhile, with the key takeaways, here's Gary Hayes.
Gary Hayes, International Trade Manager at Surrey Chambers of Commerce. You can contact me on at gary.hayes@surrey-chambers.co.uk if you have any questions regarding Brexit, or visit our website www.surrey-chambers.co.uk. The key points that businesses need to look at is see if you've got a URI number. So again, look for that if you've got that. If you are trading with the EU, how are you going to make your customs declarations? Are you going to use an agent? Are you going to self-declare? Or are you going to get your freight forwarder? And make sure that they understand what volume that you are going to have. The other thing that you should look at should be your commodity codes, making sure that all your products and all your components, anything that potentially you can sell overseas, has a commodity code, and that you understand what the potential tariff rate is going to be should we have a no deal. If you are trading with any of the countries that have free trade agreements with the EU, and you can find that information on the gov.uk website, have a look and check your contract, check for what potential tariffs that are going to be applicable, and just do the best you can to prepare for whatever is going to happen. It's changing very quickly, so if you do have any questions, please contact either myself, or if you're not based in Surrey, contact your local Chamber of Commerce. They will be more than happy to help you.
That was a great show with some great advice as well from Gary Hayes from the Surrey Chambers of Commerce. And as he said, if you want to find out how your local Chamber of Commerce can actually help you, then go to your local chamber, have a word with them. But Gary's position there, he is the International Trade Manager for the Surrey Chamber of Commerce, and a great show too. You can find that programme along with other 273 odd shows at businessconnectionslive.com. You're watching Business Connections Live. Great to have your company this afternoon. Hope you're enjoying the programme. I do feel we're on a hiding to nothing. I mean, it's just a view that two old blokes are having
old,
for sitting there. I use the term loosely, old. But it really is. And I suppose there are discussions like this going on up and down the country. I think what some people get confused about is the moment we start saying that there will be some form of a deal, there will not be a no deal. When we start saying that, we see an increase in the value of the pound. We see the dollar rate getting better, more favourable towards us as well. What are they betting on? What's the city betting on? Are they sitting on? Are they betting on it being some certainty because there's no deal? Then we've got a bit of information. Means it's going to be certain.
You know, I don't know what they're betting on, but my guess would be that they just want to know which way it's going to.
Just want to know what's happening, don't we all?
That's all. That's all. And I think, and I come back to my point about the fact that I'm just interested in our business community, and my role is to help them figure out how we're going to get more customers in the door. And so I would say to people watching that at the end of the day, whatever's happening, the government isn't actually directly running your business. So you have an opportunity to steer your business in whatever direction you think you need to steer it. Of course, this is a major issue that's stopping some of your decisions. And of course, there's going to be some stalling in the economy as a result. It's happening now. But if you're a business sitting at home watching this and you're thinking who, what, where and how, all I say to you is this. You have control. You have the levers of power on your business. And the only thing you have to do is, if you haven't got a business plan, is to write a very simple business plan. What am I selling? Who am I trying to sell it to? Why would they buy it? And what are my targets? And if you can get that, condense that down into 4 focus sections and then look to deliver it. Yes, you have to have the skill of being able to deliver your product or service, and of course that's why you're in business, because you can do that. Yes, you have to have the skill of developing new customers, and that's something that a lot of people leave to, as I've written before, to perhaps the naive and untrained. But that's what you have to do in business, because the comment you made earlier on before, while we were off air, about the government, and yes, they're an executive board, and if they were running a business, most of them probably be fired because of the way they're running the show. But look at your own business. You're a business here, Steve. Go back to some fundamentals. Understand what you're selling, why somebody would buy it, who you're going to try and sell it to, and then set yourself some hard-nosed targets. And by targets, I mean you've got to have a financial target. What is your turnover and profit target for your business in the coming year? And then to the side of that, the other targets you need to have are what I call activity targets. How many people do I need to speak to? How many proposals do I need to get out the door? How many events do I need to go to meet new people? How many people do I need to call? All that kind of what I call business development work. And you know what? Focus on those 4 things and your business will move forward positively, whatever happens anyway. Because fundamentally, yes, you said it was idealistic, you said it was unrealistic that I should expect, for leaders of our political parties to at last become adults and come together and figure this out, and your view is that's not going to happen. It's my view too, but you asked me for a plan, and that is the plan. And in business, you have to have a plan. That's the plan for them. Plan for your business is, and most businesses don't do this, by the way, is to sit down and figure out, what am I selling, who am I trying to sell it to, why would they buy it, and what are my targets?
And do you think that as long as you're doing a plan like that, then that you're reducing the risk of what happens on the global stage, the European stage?
Well, you're certainly taking control of your business, that's for sure. And that's the only thing you can do. The only thing in your hands is the control of your business.
Have you actually gone into a business and you've sat down with them and they say, we're not doing any of that, because of the circumstances with Brexit. I mean, what have been the direct results of the Brexit negotiations, lack of the unsuccess of them, that you've had business owners say to you?
Well, business owners haven't said that directly to me, but I've seen it as an effect. I've seen it as an effect later on, because as I get more involved in the business and more involved with the sales team, and we start to go out and I go out and see customers as well with the sales team. It's a good way of teaching people how to sell, how to sell. Is that you start to understand that people and businesses are holding off making decisions to the very last possible second because of uncertainty. So whilst it's not directly voiced, actually it hasn't been, it's now starting to be for sure.
But do you think it's just a mantra that people are saying because they've heard it so often now that they feel they're nearly using it as an excuse?
They're using that as their own excuse, exactly that. And so therefore I say to people, especially if you're a small business and you're at this sector of the market and not necessarily the corporate end, as you described earlier on, that's why this is exactly the time to take control of your business. If you've never taken control of your business, this is the time to do it. This is the time to actually outline those 4 points, because you still control your own business, and so I think that this is the best time to do that.
Okay, then. So we talked about where to focus within our business. What about when it comes to delivering that? Because it's very difficult when we're out there getting the message out to different people. Do you have any advice to businesses? How do you market yourself? How do you spread the word? How do you get people to come to you, to be part of your tribe? We were talking about social media earlier on, and both of us kind of came to an agreement. We see LinkedIn as the professional network, even though there'll be some viewers who are watching this who see it as a social network. We were talking about it as a professional network, and there are some people who will still post pictures of their cats and their dogs and their holidays and pretty scenes, but yet some people will be of a view that that's okay because it is a social network and therefore it's been social in business.
But I think the smart people realise that there's certain platforms are for certain things, and LinkedIn is a business platform to get your business message across in whatever format you think that is. And my preferred format is always to try and give some information, try and teach something, and so that you're not just there blatantly trying to advertise your business because that's the noise nobody wants to hear. So I think it's become a teacher on those platforms and share something. The other social networks are exactly that. They're social networks. So put that stuff on there. But you asked me how I go about promoting.
Come a little closer, by the way. You're running away from
there you go. My apologies. Yeah. How I go about promoting. Well, I think what you have to do is you have to figure out what works for you. So what works for me is public speaking. I always try and get somewhere that I can speak, a business group or an exhibition that I can speak at. That's one of my things. Second thing I do is I try and get out a newsletter every quarter. I don't do it monthly because I don't want to overload my subscription base. So I send out a newsletter quarterly, and you probably saw one I sent recently about me being on the show. And what do I try and do in that newsletter? I try and give some information. The third thing I try and do is I go to networking events that I think are going to be useful. And I have, to be honest, reined back on a lot of those because I try and find the ones that suit me and my business and the type of client that I'm looking for. So you have to do that. You have to interact with people. The fourth thing I do is I still do try and actually talk to people directly. I do my research on business sectors, on companies, and I write to them specifically about how I might be able to help them. And the word is might. Because
well, there are two words there. You write to them.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Sometimes
What's that all about then?
Well, there's a new phenomenon. Yes, and it's a phenomenon, and it's called sending stuff in the post. Now, you don't have to send thousands of it, but I do my homework with companies and I write to them specifically. I do write to them. I know it's a weird thing, but funny enough, letters get opened. People still like getting letters. I do email, of course I do. All right, of course I do. So I communicate. So let me put it this way: I communicate to companies directly that I think I can work with, I can help, for a variety of different reasons. I know their industry. I've worked with competitors, etc., etc., etc. Whatever I think my criteria is. So they're the things that work for me. And the most important element out of all of those is the ones that you are proactive with. Too many businesses are still relying on being reactive and not proactive. In the business of running a business, you have to learn how to go and promote and, dare I say the word, sell your product or services. You've got to learn the skill of selling. There's no other way around it. Even if you're a business that has the ability to attract a lot of inbound inquiries, that's fantastic and that's really great. But at some point, you've got to do something with that inbound inquiry. You've got to pick the phone up or email them back and have some sort of discourse with that organisation, with that inquiry. And what does that lead you into? It leads you into that skill set of having to sell your product or service. And how do you do that? You have to understand the problem so that you can show what the solution is. To make the transaction of your product or service for their money, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to swap our product or service for their money. To make that transaction a simple transaction but a complex transaction, you have to understand the problem that you are trying to fix. And you can only do that if you understand the skill of selling, because the skill of selling is about asking the right questions and digging into exactly what the problem is so that you can try and show what the solution could be.
More from Antonio in just a few moments. We'll be into our last segment. We'll also give you the key takeaways on today's program on this edition of Business Connections Live. It's lovely to have your company as always. Hope you found today's show marginally entertaining and interesting. Maybe you're sitting there screaming at your laptop, at your phone or whatever. We've had, apparently I've just been told, 3 parties have phoned up asking for you to be a candidate for their party. One's a leave, one's a remain.
Well, there you go.
And the other one is can't make up their mind.
Steve, the problem is I'm not a yes man, and so no party would ever have me.
There you have it then. And on that bombshell. Talking about things that we do, if you're thinking, as I said, about having a program like this, but maybe you're frightened of dealing with the media, then talk to us, because what we do is we resolve that particular issue. We will teach you, we will show you, we will demonstrate the skills that you need to handle a media interview. If it worries you, if it frightens you, if it's something that, what you can do, handle the media well, because there is a lot of availability out there. There are a lot of opportunities that are missed by small to medium-sized businesses. If the media is there, remember, one appearance on television, you will talk to more people in that single appearance than you will do in your lifetime, in normal life. How about doing that? But you need the necessary skills. You need to understand, the same way as Antonio is talking about, understanding the sales process, understanding what you're selling. You need to understand how you talk to the media. And by talking to the media in a smart, bright, intelligent way, where you're in control, can raise the value of your business. So that's what you want to do, isn't it? If you want details on how to handle the media training or any of our training courses, you can go to our website at businessconnectionslive.com. Or if you wish, there you go, there's the site to go to. Or why don't you give us a call? 01784 256 777. If you don't give us a call, I can promise you we'll be giving you a call. And I don't care if you tell me to go forth and to multiply. I really, really don't care. Because it isn't me that's missing the opportunity. It will be you. It will be you that will be doing damage to your business, because you need those skills. Get in touch with us here at Business Connections Live, and let's build your business together. You're watching Business Connections Live. My guest on today's show is Antonio Falco. He is the sales director. Can I show him your new site?
Sure, fantastic, thank you.
Brand new site from Antonio, and here it is, very, very pretty. Actually, Antonio, the sales director, anytime today, there it is. Authoritative, professional and effective. You can download his brochure, of course. Nice and easy to read, nice and clean. Learn to sell with me, the sales meeting. Develop a strong sales strategy. Focus on activity that brings results. Enhance your sales knowledge and your skills. Find out a bit about the man himself. Here he is on one of his sailing holidays. Free sales book. Stop pitching, start selling. Is that the one we got there? It's actually got the book.
There you go.
The real book is actually here. And it's a fantastic book. Now, if I want to buy that, it's £6.95.
You can get it free. Go to my website.
You're joking?
Go to my website.
Nothing's
get
for
it
free, Antonio.
Get it free. The only thing I ask people to pay for is the postage. That's it.
Okay, so if you want to get a copy of this, can we have, I don't know whether you can see it overhead. That'd be something. That'd be exciting, wouldn't it? You can get a copy of the book. It really is. Where is it? Where are we? There we are. There we go. I'll reach over here. So start selling. The art of science of no and yes. Stop pitching. Start selling. What we got inside, we got the selling game, the hard sell, the social media curse, sell, don't pitch. So what's the difference? The benefits myth. And ask for the order. So many people don't ask for the order. It's a good book. It's going to be a good read. You can download it for free if you go to
hard copy.
Order
a hard copy.
You can order a hard copy.
Yep, order a hard copy free. Just pay for the postage. Go to my website. Click.
There we go. If you want to get that, order the hard copy, and it could well be yours. Fantastic. Going well, I understand. Volume 1.
It is.
Write another one.
Sold several hundred, and that's volume 1. So that's on top of the business book, which is taken a lot longer because it's a philosophical book. The morality of businesses covers a number of areas, but that's.
So you're taking us through the process of what a business should be doing at the moment. So focusing, understanding truly what they do. From your experience, how many businesses just don't do that?
Most.
Are there a lot of businesses just sitting there? I would put us amongst this, just very passive, waiting. Just waiting for the next call to come in, the next big order. The next big order will change everything. And they are frightened of picking the phone up and calling. What would you say to those businesses?
Learn how to do it. I think in my book here, Steve...
Is it in there?
I think I've put a section in here about how to make the phone call and how the phone call actually goes. If not, I've written a separate article on that. Look, there is no substitute, as I said a second ago. If you have been masterful at being able to get leads to come into your business. By the way, I'm not talking about retail business. I'm not talking about selling pens or consumable stuff. So I'm talking about
businesses, isn't it?
Businesses
or big
business products and big product, exactly. If you've been masterful in the ability to develop a machinery that gets you leads coming in, fantastic. But my argument is you now got to do something with it. And so the thing you've got to learn is what to do with it. And fundamentally, it comes down to learning how to turn that inquiry into an order. And it's selling. It's nothing. There's no other substitute for it. And part of that process means you've got to pick the phone up, and you've probably got to say to somebody, "Thank you for your inquiry. Love to talk to you more about it. We may need to get together because it's a complex issue." And you've got to the first sale is to actually get a meeting in front of somebody. And the reason why you want to get a meeting in front of somebody is because people tell you things face to face that they don't tell you over the telephone. That's one thing. The other thing is you want to build a rapport with somebody, and it's easier to do it face to face. And the third thing you want to do is trust, because fundamentally, what is it that you're selling? I've said this on the show before. What is the one thing that you're actually selling? And when I ask this in a room or an exhibition or in some sort of forum, I get a variety of different answers. And the real answer is this, in my humble opinion, of course, is that you're selling confidence. You see, it's not until people actually take delivery of your product or service that they know it's going to deliver what you say it's going to deliver. So they're buying confidence in what you're saying. And the way that they buy that confidence, so they're buying what it says on the tin, but it's not until you open the tin and start to use the product that you know that it works. The only way to actually buy into that confidence is by you understanding what the problem is and getting to the nub of what your service or product is going to solve. And that's called selling, because you have to ask enough of the right questions in able to get to the heart of it, and then you need to explain that back as part of your sales process. You've got to explain it back, having demonstrated that you've understood what the problem is and that you know how to solve it with your product or service. That is the science of selling.
It's very interesting, actually. We were at a meeting on Friday, and we met the client for the first time, and you could see him relaxing because he was confident that we could deliver, and that wouldn't have happened over the phone. And it was a very interesting meeting because the psychology of that was quite something. And it also puts you in a different position as well when you're talking to a client. You can actually suggest solutions, can't you?
Absolutely. That you may not be able to do on the telephone because you're in conversation, you're in discussion. And of course the clever salespeople make it look like conversation, but actually you're selling. And that's why I keep saying that, my phrase is that selling is an art, a science and a profession. It's those three things. Most of us think it's about the gift of the gab. Most of us think it's about blagging people. Most of us think it's about pitching. And what does that really mean? Pitching is, I'll try and throw enough at the wall and hope some of it will stick.
But this is
You're going to struggle.
This is the telephone call, isn't it, where you pick it up and they're off and they're racing through the pitch after they've asked you what kind of day you're having. Not the way to do it.
Not the way to do it.
For most calls, and this is the last piece of advice I'm going to ask you before you give the key takeaways today, when you open a call, what would be your advice to people who hate cold calling? What would be the first thing that you would say? The phone is ringing, it gets answered. What's the first thing you say? Do you launch into your pitch, or what do you say to them?
Well, the first thing I would say is practice makes perfect. Okay, and make sure what you do is you've got about 20 people to ring, and you start ringing them at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'll tell you why I do it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Steve. If you try and do it at 9 o'clock in the morning, you will procrastinate the entire day and get to the end of the day having done absolutely nothing. So get on with your day, and at 3 o'clock you've got 2 hours to make 20 phone calls. So it means you haven't got time to waste. That's the first thing. Second thing you say to somebody is you greet them. You greet them. Most people don't know how to do that. So I would say, good afternoon, Steve, and I'd introduce my name. And what happens is that you have to, I preempt the phone call with some sort of email or something in the post. There you go, how quaint is that? All right, because that still has value. So I preempt my call with something like that. So I've got something to go straight into, which is a question. And it's the only time I ever ask a closed question.
And the question is what?
The question is, have you received my correspondence? Because I want to know if they read it or not. Mm-hmm. But as I go on to explain when we've got more time, is it doesn't matter if they've received it or not, but if they've received it, I'm going to ask them a couple of questions off the back of it.
Right.
Okay, so now we're starting because I want to start a conversation. And I want to start a conversation as quickly as possible. Because the quicker I can start a conversation, which is non-confrontational, it is about two people talking, that's when you start to build rapport, and that's the point you start to build confidence, because what I'm aiming towards is to get an appointment. So I want to start to have that ability to get to that point as early as possible. And the only way to do that is to have a conversation. So you have to ask a question. And so when it comes down to what is it you're trying to do in a phone call, this is where people get lost. They get lost in trying to explain what they do instead of just closing, Steve, for an appointment. Because most of us cannot explain what we do over the telephone. So here's my question. Why are you bothering? Why are you bothering to do something which you know is impossible to do, which is explain your product or service over the telephone? The only thing you should be aiming for is an appointment. What you've got to do in the phone call is give somebody a reason to meet you. And then you've got to wrap the call up with, I need half an hour of your time and a cup of coffee. And if at the end of it we can work together, great. If we can't, that's fine.
And maybe we can. They may even come back to you.
Maybe we can, maybe we can't. And the important psychology of the word maybe is that it's non-threatening. I don't need to threaten anybody. Okay, some people will buy, some people won't. That's fine. But what I'm doing is I'm saying to somebody, maybe we can work together, maybe we can't. I'm just asking to find out, that's all.
Listen, fantastic show today. It's been a show of two halves, hasn't it?
Definitely.
Been a really, I mean, as always, I ask for the key takeaways. Listen, I think a little bit of both would be great in here. So straight down the lens, the camera number 4 over here. Who you are, come this way a little bit. There we go. Who you are, where you're from, and the key takeaways from today's programme with Antonio Falco.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've had some entertainment, but you've learned something. The one thing I'd say to you is that my name is Antonio Falco. I'm the sales director. I'm all about how we make the next sale. So if you've got a sales team that isn't performing, we need to talk. If you've got a business that isn't bringing the sales in, we need to talk. But fundamentally, what you need to do is review what your business is about. Do I know what I'm selling? Do I know who I'm trying to sell it to? Do I know why they're going to buy it? And have I set in place, in stone, targets to try and achieve? Because unless you do that, you're going to be just sailing off into the wind.
Short, sweet, to the point.
And get a free copy of my book.
Get a free copy of the book as well if you wish. Listen, my thanks to you, Antonio. It's been fantastic having you on the program today. I've really enjoyed it. And our discussion as well concerning Brexit. So, get off the fence. Forget about the politics. Get on about positioning your business and making it a successful business. OK, then that probably wraps up today's show. Thank you very much indeed for your company. Who's coming up on future shows? Rupert Honeywood's going to be on the show in the near future. Penny Haslam, the award-winning inspirational speaker. She's going to be joining me here. Warren Knight. He's going to be talking about his upcoming book. He's a man that's into digital marketing as well. If you'd like to be a contributor on the program, go to our website. You can find out more about how to do that. I mean, it's a great asset for your website, isn't it? Come on the show and then put it on your website too. You can't beat it, can you, really? Till we do it all again next week. Have a great week. Till then, from me, Steve Highland, and Antonio, have a great week and bye for now. Bye-bye.
Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel.